Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. All right, welcome back to the channel. Once again, we're at the Georgia Gun Club's 100-yard indoor rifle range, and today I'm shooting my Tikka T3X Ace target rifle chambered in .223 Remington with an Arkin SH4 6024 by 50 first focal plane rifle scope. And today we'll be continuing our study with the new Hornady 62 grain Eld-vt, i.e. varmint target bullet. And the last time out, we had very poor performance when we were comparing that to the 60 grain VMAX. And here's a picture of that group and how it looked. And as you can see, it was extremely scattered. Now, I didn't have the proper seating length on those. Those were seated at 2.38 inches overall length. Then I found out the correct overall length should have been 2.40 inches. And so these have all been seated at the 2.40. And I'm doing it now what I probably should have done before, which is to run like a ladder test. And in this case, I'm using CFE223 powder, and I'm going to start at 25.3 grains and go to 25.7, 26.2, 26.6, and 27 grains of CFE223 powder, which is the maximum charge weight for that particular bullet. But we're going to start low and work our way up. We will chronograph these to get a look at the average velocity and the standard deviation. We'll be shooting 5-shot groups for each of these, except I will be shooting a 3-shot fouling group. And hopefully this will perform better than the last time out. Otherwise, these shots are going to be scattered and all over the place. All right, as always, you're welcome to enjoy the music while I fast forward through my shooting, or you can skip forward to the results that follow. The target's already set at 100 yards. All right, these perform much better than last time out, but not outstandingly. But let's bring them in and take a look. Okay, after this group, I dropped the scope down 2 clicks and shot the rest of the groups at that setting. So here we've got 4 together pretty well, and then 1 flyer off to the side. Here we're starting to trend down and to the left somewhat, and that continues here. That's due to the rifle barrel torquing because of the increased charge weight. This was our fouling group. That was pretty good. Looked like it was okay. I didn't change the setting for that first group, but then after the barrel warmed up, it was shooting high. So I dropped the setting down 2 clicks and then shot the rest of these at that setting. So anyway, these performed better than last time out, but not tremendous. This might be an area to develop right here, between the 25.7 and the 26.2 maybe, and even the 25.3. Those were all somewhat consistent. About an inch here, right at an inch, I'm guessing, probably an inch, 1.2 maybe there, but definitely over about an inch and a half. Definitely an inch and a half there. But we will take these home, measure these with a Hornady ballistics app, and get back to you with the results. So stay tuned. All right, I'm back from the range and I've had a chance to measure my targets and analyze the results. We're continuing to shoot the Hornady 62 grain ELD varmint target bullet. And earlier you saw this picture of the scattered results from the N133 powder. But today we're doing something a little different. We're doing what I should have done the last time out, and that's to do a ladder test where we start low and work our way up. And in this case, in about 4/10 of a grain increments. And so what we're doing here is we're using the CFE223 powder, and we have a fouling group with 3 shots at 25.3 grains. Then we start there. We go 25.3, 25.7, 26.2, 26.6, and 27 grains of powder. So to start off with, we had a fouling group at 25.3 grains of powder. We shot 3 shots. We had a group size of 0.74 inches and a mean radius of 0.35. We continued shooting that same load for our first group with 5 shots, and we had a group size of 0.88 inches and a mean radius of 0.36. Now, these 8 shots had the same charge weight, so I used the chronograph to record all 8 shots for both targets. We had an average velocity of 2841 and a standard deviation of 31.5, so pretty high on the standard deviation. The 25.3 grains is tightening up a little bit, even though it's at 0.88 inches. We've got 5 shots, and we've got some of these that are clustered pretty well together here. With a mean radius of 0.36 inches, a radius is half of a circle, so if you double that, that gives you an average group size of 0.72 inches. That's on 5 shots at 100 yards. So not terribly bad there, but I'm sure there's room for improvement here. I believe our best group was at 25.7. It was the same size as the prior group at 0.88 inches, but the mean radius was a little tighter at 0.33. We had an average velocity on 5 shots of 2920 and a standard deviation of 20.5. So somewhere in here between the 25.3 and the 26.2, I think is probably going to be a load that will perform. At 26.2, we had a group size of 1.13, and that's because we have a flyer here off to the side. Don't know if that's the powder bullet combination or if that's shooter error, but if you back that flyer out, then you've got a group size of 0.52 inches because you've got 4 shots clustered very tightly right here together. You've got an average velocity of 3,010 feet per second, a standard deviation of 24 feet per second. If we move up to 26.6 grains of powder, it's starting to open up now, and we've got a group size of 1.51 inches and a mean radius of 0.5 inches. We have an average velocity of 3,069 and a standard deviation of 42.3. So that was our highest standard deviation. And then for whatever reason, we go up to 27 grains of powder, and that gives us our lowest standard deviation. So we've got a group spread of 1.54 inches, so that's our worst group, a mean radius of 0.58 inches, an average velocity of 3123, but a standard deviation of 9.4 feet per second. And we had an extreme spread on those velocities of only 28.2 feet per second. So pretty tight on those velocities. Now, one thing about this, you want to be able to experiment with the seating depth on this bullet. And the problem I have here is I did a blue Loctite test, and I determined that the maximum overall length from the cartridge base to the ogive for this bullet is right at 2.5 inches. I did 2 tests. One came in at 2.506 and the other one came in at 2.521. So I'm going to work with the shorter of those 2 lengths, and at 2.506, if you measure that and you find out how much of the bearing surface is actually inside the neck of that bullet, you've only got 0.15 inches of depth. I measured as best as I could from where the boat tail begins to the base of the bullet, and I got another measurement of 0.15 inches. Altogether, the bullet is only seated 3/10 of an inch into the neck of that case. And so you would need to add another 1/10 of an inch thereabouts in order to have 1 caliber of seating depth. And of course, now with the maximum length at 2.5 inches, if you take off 1/10 of an inch, that puts you at 2.4 inches, and 2.4 inches is the recommended overall length of this bullet. Okay, so we might can experiment maybe 10 thousandths, maybe 20 thousandths on the seating depth of that, but we're not going to have much room to play on that. So that pretty much is what it is. So I'm probably going to come back here and do a little bit more testing with this bullet and powder, maybe between the 25.3 and the 26.2 grains. Maybe do a couple of steps in between those and see if we can tighten these up. So this time out performed a whole lot better than the last time out, and I'm pretty sure it probably has to do with the seating depth on that. So we're going to come back and we're going to test this with a little bit of additional seating depth, making that bullet just a little bit longer, maybe 10 or 20 thousandths. We have to have enough bearing surface to secure that bullet inside the case neck, but I think we can seat these just a little bit longer. All right, so what I want to know is, have you experimented with this 62 grain Eld-vt bullet at all? What powders have you used and what results have you had? So drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. All right, those are my results. I hope you find this information helpful. If you have any ideas, thoughts, questions, please leave those in the comments below. I try to interact with everybody that comments. I hope you will also like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.